I'm coming to you from a downbeat room in San Pedro, California, Port Los Angeles. This is where the ghetto meets the sea. I've been stuck in this shithole for about 20 years, and let me tell you, I have never seen such a waste of human life as I have here. This is a place full of people which we call haters. These people actually sit around and plot out how to fuck up someone's life, or to screw them out of something, and it's not for no personal gain nor for profit, but out of spite due to an overwhelming feeling of jealousy, which in turn leads to malice. Sad but true. I've seen the blood relatives of each other screw up the lives of their siblings, and as I have said, for no profit or gain. Just for, I can't answer that because I can't see why it's done like this, because I was raised in a different environment and taught better morals and virtues than that. What if you worked really hard for something, let's say a musical instrument, for example, and that during that time you owned it, you made some lifetime achievements with it, and somebody who you thought was a friend was entrusted with it for a short time? Well, let's take a look at this friend. This is a guy who at the time is 47 years old. His parents give him a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house on 2 lots. Paid his child support for 18 years. Bring him food once a week. Replaces whatever he breaks. And man, this dummy breaks a lot of shit, man. He could fuck up an anvil given a chance. He's had 3 jobs his whole life. 2 which I helped get him. And lives with a psycho bitch you can see halibut on the bottom 100 feet down. Wow. But the motherfucker isn't happy. Instead, he's as miserable, and he wants everybody around him miserable. Man, right? One time a friend of mine was staying with this guy, and during the time he stayed there, he helped this guy out by fixing a register in his boat. On this little boat, man, he'd put an outboard bait tank with a pump, running lights, etc., etc., etc. The reason my friend had built the boat was to catch live fish for the fish buyers, to make some money. He had on several occasions invited the other guy to go and make money, but you know what? He went a couple times, but he bitched when he couldn't catch anything. I had learned from an earlier event years before that when I was fishing with the guy. This is when I stayed with him. One morning we went fishing, but before he could get a hook on his line, I landed 3 fish. 3 casts, 3 fish. Well, this fucker got butt hurt. He walked all the way back to the house like a little kid taking his toys home after a bad date in the sandbox. You know what I mean? Well, when I got back, my wallet was missing. So that's what you get when you have a good day of fishing. And my friend with the boat, and he started doing good with the boat, the asshole took it back, parked it in the backyard, and it sits there to this day. Why? Because he couldn't do what my friend can do, So he took his toys back. Boo-hoo-hoo. Well, this is the time I was beginning to become aware of the hater syndrome. My mistake, maybe, but 10 years ago, that guy was an alright dude, man. One of the boys. He was dependable as to handling things, and I had lived with this person before and known him for about 15 years. But like everyone else, he had that hater syndrome. He was a devious, jealous hater inside. Maybe a dormant gene, I don't know, mindfuck treatment, or maybe something in the water? Nah, it can't be that. I drink it too. I don't know, but I don't live like that. Well, this guy didn't have a bill or a worry in the world. But he was never happy. Never. And as far as his habits, he had bad ones. Well, at this time, shit was falling apart for me because I was losing a place I and a girlfriend had for about 8 years. Because the landlord there was a top-notch hater. Top 10 lister. He had a short man attitude. And he wanted 10 grand for me to keep renting the place because, for one thing, he'd found out how much money my medical pot guard had been making me in previous years. This is a guy the whole neighborhood hated. And almost had got cut off. He had just got cut off from his pension from the Longshore Workers Union for false medical claims for early retirement, right? So, you know how he got caught? He used to tape record people at work and snitch on them. Well, somebody recorded him doing something not consistent with his injury claim, like out dancing or playing baseball, some shit like that. So when he tried to extort me for money, I told him to fuck off. So he evicted me. I lost my place. I didn't let him extort me either. Bad call? That depends. How much self-esteem and dignity do you have? What makes a person think that they can do shit like that and think it's okay? Shh. Well, during the time of moving and trying to get relocated, I got cut from my job for doing the right thing. A long story. And let me tell you something. These people started to see me fall, and you know what? That was the time that all these rat bastards were waiting for. Well, between everybody helping me out and ripping me off, I was confused and misled as to who was who. Some of these people went out and told stories to discredit my social standings with my immediate group, or my friends, my employers, people like that, and tried to shut down what little resources I still had. Yeah, these people just kept fucking around until I went to work for a different person than I'd been working for. This gave me a chance to go and make some real money again, because I'm a boat captain and I would be off the beach, wouldn't have to worry or deal with or be around all those fucking haters. Well, things went pretty good and I made about 11 grand in a month, man. Well, this so-called friend, where the musical instrument was at, found out I was making good money again. And the motherfucker says, "Hey, let me have $1,000. Just like that. Well, at first I thought he was joking. But when I realized he was serious, I asked, "What? You think I owe you money or something?" Because as it was, at the time, he owed me, if anybody owed anybody anything. His answer was, "Oh, you got plenty of money. You should just do it for the fuck of it." And this fucker was serious. And then when this little meeting took place, I was really pressed for time because all the boats were leaving the dock in a matter of hours. But in the meantime, while I was with him, I had sold $1,500 worth of merchandise for him. Right? And the idiot still wasn't happy. Well, with the kind of job I have to stay out on the water all week and come in on the weekend. Well, after a week out, there I am on my way in when this fucking guy calls and he asks me, "Hey, can you help me sell some more merchandise?" And then he goes, "Oh, by the way, my house got broke into this week." Well, as long as I've known this guy, he doesn't go anywhere unless it's absolutely necessary. But he tells me that he was at the doctor's with his girlfriend. He said it happened on a Monday, but somebody else tells me that it happened on a Tuesday. He tells me a story on the phone before I get to the house. It sounds real fishy because he changes his story 3 times just on the phone before, He tells me that he called 2 people to come and look at what had happened. Doesn't call the police and isn't very upset that somebody broke in his pad. But assures me one thing is for sure: the musical instrument is gone. One person, I would say, is in on it, and the other person is just a patsy. Well, there you have a house with guns, ammo, fishing poles, fishing reels, HDTV sets, dope, money, jewelry, while the musical instrument, which we're referring to, is under a table with several boxes on it, and if you didn't know it was there, you'd never see it. But you know what? Just the musical instruments taken in this are breaking, if that's what we're calling it, like I really believe that. I think they actually thought I was dumb as they are. Yeah, these people went as far as to act out scenarios to make believe that they were innocent or had nothing to do with it. Like one night, this Nimrod and his girlfriend, they go to a friend's house, which was unusual because, they never leave the house, as I'd said, or as you would say, they were out of their environment. They asked to use the internet to look for the so-called missing or stolen musical instrument on eBay. Now, if you knew this jughead, you knew that he knows absolutely zero zip about computers, let alone trying to find a missing instrument on one. What a joke. But when I asked them, the people whose house they went to, how the scenario went down, and mind you, I wasn't there, I asked, did it go like this? After they asked to use the internet, the next thing they asked was, "Do you got a bowl?" And my friend said, "Yep." And then the next question was, they asked, "Do you got a joint?" And my friend said, "Yeah." And then I asked, "Did you ever get on the internet?" And my friend goes, "No, not really." And then that's when my one friend realized that he's being used as a patsy. Because when you take a logical, typical look at the whole thing, it doesn't take Sherlock Holmes to figure out that there's a nigger in the woodpile. Well, anyway, there is no real solid evidence, like a smoking gun. But this shithole that we live in isn't very big, in San Pedro, California. And all it takes is for one of those haters to get mad at another one, and then they tell all. Yeah, straight rat each other out. But next week, they'll all be friends again. Yeah, you believe that? That's what they do. Sooner or later, you find out about shit. Who done it and such. So then you know. So what do? Well, the way I see it from my eyes, it wasn't the value of it money-wise. It was the fact that they knew that the personal value of it to me, and that the overwhelming emotion of tyranny and malice, that you got more than me syndrome, or it's the fact that most of these people never really had anything, or have they really earned or worked hard for anything, so they don't know the value of things. And that they can't figure out how to interact with others or learn how to deal with life on their own. Yeah, I've seen these people screw each other's wives and husbands, get into big scenes, cops and shit like that, man. And then they still run around together? Go figure. Yeah, they say in San Pedro you don't lose your girlfriend, you just lose your turn. Here, if you take a date out to a local joint or one of the happenings, you leave for 2-3 minutes, like go take a leak, all of your so-called friends will just, in that quick period of time, tell your date shit like, she's a piece of shit, he's a piece of shit. Once a date was told I was on a sex offenders list. Well, I have to say I'm sorry for my response to that. I didn't mean to hit him so many times, which makes me look dumb for letting him get to me. Well, one incident, some hater types actually went to a person's job site, and they screwed something up, and it was blamed on the person, which had worked there for quite some time. It had nothing to do with whatever had happened, but it was made to look like he caused the incident. And not only did he lose his job, he freaked out and blew his brains out. That's right, he killed him fucking self. Tyranny and malice are prime ingredients for these mistakes of the human race. Fear and mental confusion are prime emotions which these people depend on. And having an education higher than the 8th grade can get you hammered by haters because they don't understand. Hell, this is a community that has a sports-oriented mentality and nil in academics, and is made up of mostly dock workers, fishermen, and Western European immigrants. So sometimes it's better to leave things unsaid. Then they say, to start any shit. Another thing is that almost everybody's related to somebody. And what did I say about fucking everybody, So what do you do with people like that? Well, I can think of a couple things. But like I said, I've mentioned before, I have better virtues and morals than that. And yet a lot of this shit that is done by these people isn't done on an act upon anybody's religion, their culture, their ethics, their race, their sex. It's more like an attack on your self-esteem. It's mean people. It's people that don't want to see anyone succeed any farther than they have. And as mentioned before, for no gain or profit of any kind, but just to watch as they screw something up that somebody has worked very hard for. In a sense, I wonder if there isn't a bit of sport to it because of the way I've seen fucking people celebrate over someone's misfortunes. Yeah, the way that these haters found out that I wasn't one of them was when I learned of a scam to fuck a girl around I knew. You know what for? Because she had bought a new car. And another girl got jealous, and as it goes, she couldn't take or get the new car, so she and her friends decided they were going to steal it and fuck it up. Well, I fucked their plans up because when they came to steal it, they got touched up a wee bit. And then soon after that incident, it wasn't hard to find out who all these haters were. And then that's when I got a deep look into the community I was living in. When you see things at first, they appear to be one thing, when actually there's something quite different altogether. That's what San Pedro is all about. Don't get me wrong, I moved here. The location is A1, but some of the people suck. Now, when these haters are out doing their scams or whatever it is they do, meddle, you wonder, how come somebody can't see it coming? Good question. Fine point I would like to bring up, because the fear and the mental confusion part of it. Because mostly they do it to people who are already stressing on a crisis, which makes them weak and vulnerable. They will befriend you, and the next thing you know, you're missing whatever it was that was valuable to you. San Pedro, a city where your hand gets shook and your money gets took. Well, there are a couple isolated pockets of people that are real. And during this time, I came to know who these people are. But yet my motto is, trust no one. So it's like they're just acquaintances. Because all my friends I can count on one hand, and I got fingers left over. But most of these people have been fucked around by the same people I'm telling you about. Fear, that's what these people mostly rely on. I don't know what the term is nowadays. Pressuring, punking, jacking, whatever. But there's laws for that. Extortion, that's what that's called. Exploitation, how about that one? Idealistic homegrown terrorism is what they call it nowadays. I've seen people extorted out of their businesses and their homes. But yet these fuckers are so unique in their methods that you can't prove anything, and they don't really use force physically in most cases because of the fear factor. And when they call authorities find out that these people have done it willingly. Sign their shit over or whatever. Give it to them because the haters mind fucked them. And when the authorities tell them that there's nothing they can do because they willingly signed their names or gave over their shit, then it becomes clear that they were simply mind fucked and may have had something stolen or altered or whatever the case may be. And do you think anybody is going to step up and help somebody in this position in this town? The answer? Well, the answer doesn't cover the whole problem. It should be the duration or the long haul before we weed out all the answers that make up the big answer. But who do they lose their shit to? one of the big Western European families who have the major real estate companies around the harbor area and own part of the banks, the same cycle happens over and over. Bad loans, bad mortgage, recalls, repo, resales, property values do vary to the work available in the area. No work, people lose. Some people get set up for years, have no problems. And then one day they do something or buy something or possess something that these mindless, soulless, and don't have a life haters can't understand. Well, guess what? You're the new haters target. And as mentioned, they put a festive type of attitude on it, like it's a sporting event. For me to deviate into the means and methods, I would have to really analyze one of these scenarios or whatever it is you call it, this act in progress. I don't think that you would find any one set way that they do things because there's so many of them. I think it's an all original or individual methods, and they're all inherited from parental organisms, like a distinctive survival tactic passed through generations or some shit. Yeah, haters may come in all walks of life, let's say. The worst ones are the ones that have power, like a political position, or even have weapons of mass destruction. Well, as time goes on, you learn to say nothing. Let no one know anything about anything, and I say that if I tell myself something I'm not supposed to talk about, then there's a leak. Learn to stay under the radar. Don't be doing things like having nice things or going places, flaunting things like that, because these fuckers will think that you're doing something without their approval. Yeah, they think like that. Control freaks, power mongers. These kind of haters are probably the most dangerous. They feel that if somebody has something, it's community property and you're to share more than you're allowed to keep. What matters in this case is how much authority or power they have. You want to stay as far away from these types if you value your property, your life, or your freedom, because this class of haters, they don't like people's freedom rights and they must be in control of all. Attention. If you encounter this type, advice. Play stupid. Get away fast. Well, at this time, I'd come to realize that I was surrounded by the dysfunctional generation of the new millennium with a 100% graduation rate. Well, anyway, it's not in any way of living that I've heard of, but one has to witness the shit. And not for a short time, because this is passed on through generations. The things that I'm telling you here are only a small speck in the world of haters. Haters are people who basically to say don't have no life, and they're up to their personal sworn duty into getting into whatever they can. This may involve even being implemented in somebody's drug-influenced mental scenario, because drugs and haters don't mix. But in all the cases, anyway, the motive is the same, to make it look like they're right and everybody else is wrong. As mentioned earlier, haters come in all walks of life. I know of another incident that involved a mishap that was very life-changing experience for one individual. One evening, a woman I know was in her house taking a shower when two of her so-called friends decided to drive by and throw a seal bomb into her apartment. Seal bomb is an explosive used by commercial fishermen to control seals. A large firework, bigger than an M80, to which started the fire and burned this woman so badly that she was in the hospital for quite some time and also in rehabilitation. The two individuals which threw the bomb had stopped and knew that they had set the fire, but just drove away. It was unclear what had happened, really, but one of these individuals played along with the whole thing until the woman got out of the hospital, and during the time of rehabilitation had so-called befriended her, or still pretending to be her best friend. She was asked one night if she could get medication by the woman who had been burned, and you know what? That rotten fucking bitch brought her medication. It was dog warming pills she had brought her, and it made her sick. That individual had on an occasion or two had been to my house. I'd always thought that this person was a little off, but man, did I find out how far a little off is. Well, one night, this person comes by my house, hangs out a while, early in the evening, and then she came back later at night, you know, in return, but just hangs out, and I'm not really paying attention to what she's doing or going on. But during the time between she had been there earlier and in the time that she had come back, me and my girlfriend had had a talk about our sex activities. Alone, mind you, and something had been mentioned during that conversation that only if you had been there did you know what we had talked about. Well, when this person came back the second time that night, My girlfriend was gone, and she come, and this other girl comes, and she mentions something about the conversation that I'd had earlier with my girlfriend. Well, when she made the remark about the conversation, I was caught off guard, and the first thing that came to my mind was she here when we talked about that? So as I started to question her about this, she suddenly had to leave, and I was sidetracked. Phone rang, so I kind of forgot to mention it. Well, after she left, I really got to thinking about it, and the only way she would have been able to know what we were talking about, and I know, as I said, me and my girlfriend were alone, was to eavesdrop on our conversation. What'd she do? Stand under the window? Hide in the closet? You want the answer? She had been going to the Spy Store, a store which specializes in surveillance equipment. I find out from a mutual friend of hers that had bought listening bugs, microphones, and not cheap ones either. They were the remote wireless kind. Well, that fucking bitch bugged my house and sat outside and listened. When I found out what had happened, I confronted her. She denied everything. But her mutual friend, who had told me what was going on, had also had a receipt from the Spy Store, from the girl's truck that we're talking about. And on it was a purchase for a remote wireless listening device. When confronted with that, I told her that she was a fucking sick bitch, and that she had been, she'd been going to a lot of doctors lately at the time, and I don't know, it was never clear to me what for, but when I confronted her with this thing, I also said, "You're a fucking sick bitch, and you know what? You'd better get some new doctors. They're not working for you, because look at the shit you do now, man." And the bitch never came back. Now, what possesses a person to burn up a friend, spy on another friend, and think that they're in the right and you're in the wrong for just being there? That's right. She did it because it was later said by her that we were in the wrong place. Wrong place? Excuse me. I believe that when they started my one friend on fire, she was at home in a shower, and when they bugged me, it was in my house. So I guess being at home is the wrong place to be to these people. I don't know. Go figure. Well, there was one point in time, there was one of these haters got under my skin and went and fucked up off a couple jobs for me. This one here, this hater, is one of the ones I actually heard and saw plotting against somebody, a person, at one time. One of the key subjects which got me in the beginning to start seeing what I'm talking about here. And this is the hater that had brought an A1 scammer into the clique. And this guy really fucked up things for a good person. And after the scammer just about brought down a small family business and all its asset, this hater who brought the guy to town leaves town right in the middle of all the bullshit, unnoticed, for several months, while all the chaos which this scammer friend of his had caused keeps everybody busy trying to figure out what had happened, because somehow he got hold of something, altered documents, some shit like that, and fucked up my friend's whole world. I don't really know all the exact details, and yet I don't think my friend has figured out yet to this date what all the details were. The money the guy got out of it, you know what he spent it on? His last 6 months of life, because he was terminally ill. Yeah, almost ruined a bunch of lives. 4 or 5 to be exact. Go figure. Selfish, greedy. But during that process of undoing the damage that this guy had created, people had forgotten who had brought this dude around. Well, about a half year later, here comes that hater again. And when I find out that he's hanging out with my friend, the one who got screwed around, he had already been around about a month at that time. I wasn't around. He showed up back up when I was out of town working. I didn't know this ass was back. So I reminded my friend about the incident. Yeah, my friend remembered, but this hater had already gotten himself into debt with my friend before he remembered. This hater is also, I believe, I know, was involved in the earlier incident of the musical instrument. And like I said earlier, this guy screwed me out of a couple jobs. Well, I kind of let him have this one job in a way, because you can take somebody's job, but when it comes to doing it, the hands-on, the skill, the experience, you can't fake that. Well, when this guy went out and tried to do the job he's trying to screw me out of, it almost killed him, literally. The fucker didn't have a clue to what was really going on, because his hater pea brain only told him to try and take my job, but forgot to tell him he didn't know how to do it. But I guess that overwhelming emotions of the tyranny and malice syndrome, which causes abnormal actions in these people, is the problem here. All they want to achieve is one part, the most important part, stealing the job, the part that puts you or me or whoever out, and not doing the job and not doing it well, and they end up quitting or getting fired shortly after because they never really wanted the job in the first place. They just didn't want to see you or me have it. So what do? I ask, how do you do something about it? Well, let me tell you, there's no law in the land which is going to prosecute people like haters, because the crime is all about human deception. It's about people interfering inside your comfort zone. It's like this guy. He managed to fuck up my source of living and income, and that was all he was interested in. No profit, no gain. There are some situations that require a second look over due to the fact that the behavior of some people is misinterpreted as actions of hate, when in fact it is a survival technique, because nobody trusts nobody. So what you get is one vicious cycle, mental anguish spinning in people's heads. In order to sense this situation, one must have a trained eye and must understand the position that they are in compared to the person that they are looking at. Well, it's like this. If you're the person observing, you will see how vulnerable a person can really be. And you will see how haters are also observing and calculating the situation, as you would say, setting up the kill. And from past experience, what I have noticed is that it is basically the first move not to provide any help or suggestions toward the crisis which the person is enduring. But it is important for the haters to befriend that person and gain some trust, so as the person is actually put into a place where only haters are. Then it's easier for them to partake in their fucked up ways, man. Now, this might consist of having the fear factor control, or maybe some authority position, in which they may intimidate the person into doing what they want them to do, because the person has nowhere to turn, because the haters have conveniently shut off all resources due to the fact the whole situation has been set up from the beginning. So at this point, the haters find out what is valuable and what is takeable, and give the person the reason why they lost their shit is because so-and-so did it, and the haters don't know why. When the real truth is that everybody around that person is in on it, and when that person finds out what and realizes what's going on. But it's too late then. And who do you call? And the more that is taken, the less the person has to work with. So they end up on the streets with nothing. Yep, seen that. Well, at one point in time, this person may recover their self-esteem and start getting their life back together. But if they do it in this town, they're almost more than guaranteed to get hammered by haters. You know, and a lot of these people who do recover, they do it with the help from their family members or employers. Definitely not acquaintances and haters, and not in this place. In one incident, a girl I know was plagued so bad by haters it took thousands of dollars from her mother to get her back on her feet, because they had to go recover her car, and when she went back to her apartment, there was really nothing there that was left of any value or use anymore. And in another incident, a person rented a friend of mine an apartment and then turned around and tried to sue him for a bunch of illegal shit on the place, and then tried to evict him right after he moved in. But my friend was smart enough to know better, and the hater was pretty stupid. That hater ended up losing that round. In that incident, due to the fact that my friend had been an apartment manager and knew the laws of the Tenant Landlord Act, the guy that rented him the place didn't know the law. That goes to show you that these haters don't have a lick of sense. But the bad thing was that this little episode caused a lot of bad blood between good friends, because nobody knew the real truth. The real truth, that's the way it should be, but nobody in this clique knows the meaning of the real truth. Sad. I can go on and on and on with incidences all day long, but the real question is, does this happen everywhere? I don't know. Can you see any similarities in your experiences with people to the ones I've mentioned? If so, pay attention and watch with cautious eyes and have keen ears, because, as I have mentioned, the ones that are the closest are the ones to watch. It's always better to observe all these types of people from afar, believe me. But as I have said, They come in all walks of life. I believe a lot of it has to do with the competition attitude toward life, which can also be one of the small yet many factors that creates this way of living or existing through life. But one thing for sure, jealousy is a large percentage of these attitudes because that is pretty much the main fuel of the fire. Greed, there's one for you. Perhaps the second largest percentage of the compound or mixture or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, man, put those two emotions together along with bad attitudes, the fear factor with mental confusion, the lack of common sense and education. What you get is a common hitter. Yep, fresh one straight out of the gate. Which at this time can be recruited and trained by the more advanced and knowledgeable haters. You know, like going to boot camp or some shit like that. Maybe, who knows? I don't know. If it does go down like a secret cult or a society, then all of us, the ones that don't know, we're in big trouble if this shit goes on everywhere. But one has to have a trained eye to really see these acts, to believe that one is not going crazy or getting real paranoid. Yep. And the people who are so naive to the real ways of the world that's right just outside their front door, they will call you loony. That makes them easy targets and vulnerable to the haters because they'll never see it coming. So now you're probably wondering, how come somebody doesn't step in and run these people off? Well, because what they have done can't really be recovered. And if you go out and retaliate, then it makes you look like the one that's all fucked up in the head. Like I pointed out, they make you look like the bad guy. And believe me, as soon as you show any aggression, the first thing that these fuckers will do is call the police. And then you really look dumb. And maybe have some charges on you also. How nice. But I did say that there are good people here. Ones that you can trust in times of misfortunes. Who in most cases have had a bout or two with haters. Some of these people have stories in this publication. So it evens out the odds some, knowing that there are others that see and know what I'm talking about here. You learn a lot about human nature living in a socially controlled environment, the peer pressure of doing what you're told, whatever it may be, even if you don't know what you're doing. That's the mentality of a dung beetle. Eat shit, be happy. During the writing of this publication, several people reviewed parts of this writing, and they said I couldn't have put it into a better perspective, and agreed with it. These people aren't part of any incident mentioned here, and some of them didn't even live in this town. So now you can imagine what kind of third world planet place this is. Not bad if you're in the right clique, but why should we have to live like that? I love this place, but I can do without haters. But I guess it goes with the territory. I don't think so. And again, what can you do? Protect yourself. Become aware. Be more alert to your surroundings. Watch and listen more. But the main thing is use common sense. Anything too good to be true is just that. Because more than likely there's a catch to it. And you'll lose. I'm not saying that this is an epidemic of mass proportions or that this is a common rule. But it does exist. And not brought to the surface due to the fact that people don't want to recant such events in their lives because they're ashamed or too embarrassed because they blame themselves. Well, at the time of this writing, our little town was eating shit like the rest of the country. And everybody was hating a great big oil company who had just fucked up one of our major fishing grounds in the Gulf of Mexico. Unemployment rate is at about 15%, and nobody has figured out yet that the U.S. government did the 9/11 attacks. I'm telling you these stories of the haters with hope that you may never become the victim of one of these hater attacks. I know that people know right from wrong. And keep in mind, if you see somebody else becoming a victim, maybe you can find a way to assist or aid or point out the situation that they are in. Well, I should say, if you see this kind of shit going on in your community, make everyone aware of the people or persons that are involved and take extra precaution in dealing with these people because they're not going to go away. Now, some of you might think I'm crazy or paranoid or maybe on drugs, but I've taken all of the necessary measures to make sure that I'm not. Believe me, because when I started realizing what was going on here, it still took me 5 to 6 years to really analyze it enough to find out what was really going on and to put it here into print to you. And I also would like to make a note. San Pedro, California is a gem of its own. Some remarks I made about San Pedro may have been rudely put, but it was to make a point. There are really good people here. I love it here. The location is ideal for what I am doing for work. I walk everywhere. I haven't owned a car in 21 years, but I have to admit, Haters don't make it paradise. All the events or incidences featured or mentioned are based upon true events in the lives of the persons in this publication. If any coincidental similarities or situations seem to be familiar to anyone, I would like to say, all victims in this publication have given me their stories knowingly, willingly, and truthfully. So if it still sounds familiar, don't tell anyone, because the only ones in this publication who are going to complain are the haters. So speak up and let them all know who you are. Well, there you have it. Remember, your God loves you. Peace out.